If you're new to Rebelle 6, this is the right video for you. We're going to be going over all of the basic things that most people want to know as they get started. So we're going to start with watercolors. So up here in the top left is the watercolor icon. This is keyboard shortcut Shift plus W, and we're going to paint a little bit of cobalt blue. Now over here on the right, I've selected watercolor pigments. This is one of my favorite new features inside of Rebelle 6. You actually can see the real color names: gold ochre, cadmium orange, madder lake deep. These are beautiful, accurate representations of these colors in real life. So here you can see on the screen, watercolor is doing its watercolor diffusion. Over here on the left, you'll notice this watercolor slider. This in the properties panel allows you to adjust how much water is being added. So let's add a lot of water over here and just a little bit of water over here. We'll zoom in with pinch to zoom. And notice the difference between these two things. Now, one of the things that people want to know immediately when they start using Rebelle is, how do you pause the diffusion? How do you keep it from moving once you put the paint on the canvas? Right over here on the right, keyboard shortcut D is pause diffusion. We're going to tap that. Notice the icon right up here, and there'll be a lot of icons that show up in this area that indicate what's happening on the screen. If we want to see what areas are wet, we can use keyboard shortcut H or this show wet icon in the layers panel. Let's look at resizing the brush. If you hold down Control, you can drag left or right to resize the brush, and up and down is going to adjust opacity. Now these are the same properties as in the properties panel. There are additional properties over here in the context menu. You can see pressure and length are options. You can turn those on and see those this way. This is a slider that you would use if you don't have a pressure sensitive stylus. There's also line smoothing, like pulled string, and here you can create beautiful straight and arced lines with ease. Let's undo that. And let's go ahead and look at some of the transparency modes that make this watercolor experience more realistic. You can notice right here, this area has darkened. Semi-transparent. When the opacity is below 50, this is going to add like transparent mode. When it's above 50, it's going to act like opaque mode, which is this last option right here, opaque. Let's increase our water again. And let's use the water tool. That's keyboard shortcut W. We're going to add water on this entire section right here in the middle. We're going to select the dry tool. We're going to dry this section on the right, hide the water levels, and unpause diffusion. You notice that where we've dried the canvas, the paint is not moving, and where we've wet the canvas, the paint is diffusing. We can adjust this with visual settings, keyboard shortcut F12, and here we can turn on or off drips. So we're going to turn those off, and we're going to look at the tilt function right here. So let's undo this. And we should have drips turned off. Notice this diffuses out. It's filling in these old wet drips from before, but it's not going the same way. We're going to use the blow tool, keyboard shortcut O. We're going to push this up just as if we were blowing on the canvas with a straw. Now you can see that this canvas has gravity attached to it. That's this icon right over here, this panel tilt. You can see this blue dot. We can turn that off or on, change the direction. Let's turn drips back on, add some more water, and take another look at this. Because we've changed the tilt to go to the upper right-hand corner, you can see that it's going the upper right-hand corner. If we bring it down, you can see it's going down to the side, and we can actually use the accelerometer on our device. And just like a real canvas, we can change the direction that the diffusion is happening on our screen and on our canvas. All right, let's turn that off for now. Let's add a little bit more water here to the center. If we want to dry this, we can use the option Fast Dry, keyboard shortcut F. And what this is going to do is this is going to remove the excess water, the water that's causing the diffusion, but the layer still remains wet, which means when we add more wet paint to it, it'll behave like wet paint on wet paint. Notice the difference between these two strokes, wet on wet and wet on dry. Let's go ahead and make a new layer and hide the last one. Now we're going to turn on a pro feature. This is called color pigments. So up here in the color set, we can see these pigments. With pigments turned on, this is going to act a lot more like traditional paints, pigments that you buy at the store. We're going to use Pyro Red. Let's use our Cobalt Blue and our Cadmium Yellow Light. Now, one of the things that I really enjoy about using Rebelle 6 is these painting modes right here. These are keyboard shortcuts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This is paint only, paint with a little bit of mixing. This is paint and blend. This is blending only, and this is erase. Now, every single brush has the opportunity of doing every single task that you could want it to do. So check this out. This color mixing is absolutely stunning. And look how easy it is to create this color wheel and how accurate the colors actually are. I think this is gorgeous. This is one of the most therapeutic and satisfying experiences of any digital art program I've ever used. Look how beautiful that is. Let's create a layer that uses traditional color mixing. And we'll take our yellow. We're going to blend these two together. Most of the other colors actually mix quite nicely, but blue and yellow do not. So we're going to switch to blend only. We're going to blend these together. Notice the difference in the colors that we're getting. Right here on the left, with pigments turned on, we get this beautiful green. Over here on the right, we get a bluish, grayish color. It does not represent how we see it in actual pigment painting. We can, of course, grab a beautiful green from our color set and add that in there. But Pigments in the Pro version allows us to do this organically by mixing colors. Now this mixes just like real pigments. But as we move in, we notice that it starts to look a little bit more like digital art. We can start to see these pixels, and if we were to print this, it would be very clear that we made this on a computer and not with our hands and actual paints. Now, if you want your digital art to look as close to traditional art as possible, then you can use this feature called NanoPixel. I think this is super cool. Feels kind of magical. Now, I just turned this on and I want you to look at how close we can zoom in. This is near microscopic levels of detail here. And what's probably the most impressive thing to me about this is this changes from canvas to canvas, from texture to texture. So we're going to switch from canvas. We're using HM01 handmade. We're going to choose WK01 washi paper. Now notice out here we've got these deckled edges. Notice the patterns here and how this is diffused. And I want you to see how different this looks. And let's switch to blending. Notice these textures here. We have fibers. This is going to dry and diffuse differently because we're using a different type of canvas. Imagine what you can do with this level of control and all sorts of different papers and art surfaces. If you click on the canvas area right here, you can get more papers right from Escape Motions. They have a ton of beautifully crafted papers and art surfaces that react just like the real thing. It's in this area also you can get more brushes and more color sets that you can just drag and drop directly onto the canvas and it'll import it. In order to pick a color, you can use this icon right here, Pick Color. You can switch to it with keyboard shortcut I. Notice we can hover over these different colors and select them. You can also do this with keyboard shortcut Alt. And now we have this option right here, Mix Color. This is shortcut X. If we turn this on, this is going to increment us towards the color we're picking. So right here, we're in a light green. We're going to tap over here in blue, and notice that this is getting closer to blue the more we tap. You can adjust how much it adjusts in Preferences. And let's jump over to our oils. Inside of the oils, there's a multicolored brush and a dirty brush. If we turn these on, let's select right here. We're going to make this smaller. Click OK. Now let's use our multicolored brush and our dirty brush. This is Alt-M and Alt-D for the shortcuts. We're going to select Blend. We're going to tap right here. We're going to switch back to painting. Now, when you paint traditionally, if you use your brush and then you switch colors, some of that other color still stays on the brush. Here you can see all of that color is still on the brush as we start. As we keep going, it blends down into a single color just like it would in real life. Rebelle 6 has beautifully realistic oils. We're going to select the oil brush, shortcut Shift+O. Let's select our cobalt blue again. We're going to turn off these dirty brush options. You can see these colors here. Now, one of the things that people want to know immediately how to do is how to increase the impasto on their oil brushes. So let's look at that quickly. Loading here. Notice there's very little impasto. Here as we load the paint up, we're going to have more impasto here. If we go to the brush creator, you can see max impasto height is set at 200. You can lower that to decrease the amount of impasto. And right here in the visual settings, shortcut F12, you can drag this to the right to increase it on the entire canvas. Notice here how thick the impasto is. Let's do a little bit of light blending. And then let's add a little bit of watercolor over the top to see how texture influences the way that this flows. We're going to bring tilt down a little stronger and paint some yellow cadmium light right over the top. We're going to increase texture influence in visual settings, and let's paint some cadmium yellow light right over the top of this oil paint. Notice over here, these little ridges in the paint have a huge effect on what happens here. The paint is pooling, it's mixing colors. Let's add a little bit of water over the top here and then dry one section. This is what defines a living canvas inside of Rebelle 6. There is nowhere that you can get this level of realism or this depth of satisfaction in painting on a computer. I love this so much. All right, let's look at controlling the canvas. We're going to click on the Navigator panel here and drag down. Here, if you want to see the entire screen, you can click on this icon right here, shortcut Control+O. You can zoom in and out with these icons, rotate with these ones, reset rotation. You can do the same thing with twisting, 2 fingers, pinching in and pinching out to zoom. Let's reset. And if you want to flip the canvas, you can do with shortcut F. Notice the icon stays highlighted to show that the canvas has been flipped. You can pan the canvas by holding down the space key, zoom in and out by dragging right and left while holding the Z key, and rotate by pressing the R key. We're going to go to Window, Reference Images, and we're going to open up a handful of images. I'm going to hold down Control and select Open. Notice this is going to open a whole bunch of images. In order to put them on the screen, all we have to do is just tap on them to unhide them. Go ahead and hide these. You can also create guides that show up on your canvas. And you can show the image itself to help you get proportions correct. Let's go ahead and hide this, and we're going to look at another feature here. I have an image that I made. This was made without texture, without any of the other fancy features inside of Rebelle 6. When I click on OK, I want you to see what happens to it. Look how immensely powerful that canvas is. Now, this next feature has absolutely changed the way that I paint and how I change proportions. So in Rebelle 6, there is a new Liquify tool. You can see right here, shortcut S, and then we're using Liquify Push, and the brush we're using is called Soft. Now, as I push here, you can see that it can change the shapes very, very easily. And what we're doing is we're keeping the same quality as the original painting. So in the past, smudge tools have looked a lot like this, where you're blurring out, you're losing the ability to use this. All you're doing is kind of smudging things around. This is not the case with the new Liquify tool in Rebelle 6. Rebelle 6 Pro uses the brand new Fractal engine, the one responsible for this extreme level of detail. In the past, in order to do some of this work, it would have taken 50 steps of lasso selecting, repainting, redrawing different sections, and at the end you still have some areas that are they just don't look right. And here we can do this lightning fast adjustment. This even works with hair and it looks amazing. Now, if you make changes that you don't want to keep, you can use Liquify Reconstruct and it'll undo those changes. You can bake those in so that you're no longer saving those changes in system memory. Let's go ahead and adjust our canvas size in. Click OK. Now, Rebelle 6 Pro has a couple additional features. There's an option to export to Photoshop. This is a live connection between Photoshop and Rebelle 6 Pro. There's color management to make sure that if you're printing this out using NanoPixel Export, which can export at 400% the original canvas size, you can print this out with color management set to accurately represent the colors. You have the beautiful color pigment option and NanoPixel for that extreme level of detail. And all of this is controllable so that you can get the exact look and feel for your artwork that you want. Now, if you're looking for more tutorials, you can go to Help and Video Tutorials. That'll open the YouTube page, and there'll be a link in the description. You can also go to the Rebelle 6 support page, and right here, you can see the different manuals available. These are searchable and indexed, so you can tap on something and go right to it. Now, there's a lot of keyboard shortcuts in Rebelle. You can click here on Edit, then Keyboard Shortcuts. You can see these all right here. If you want to change one of the shortcuts, easy to do. Just select right here, press the keyboard shortcut on your computer, and then click OK. What questions do you have about Rebelle 6 and Rebelle 6 Pro? Put that in the comment section. Make sure that you like and subscribe to this channel, and click the notification icon to be notified when we have new videos available. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, stay creative and have a wonderful day.